He wanted to be rich. He has nothing to show for himself, but he wanted to make a lot of money. In his early 20s, he quit his job and had to join the army. In his mid-20s, he left the army and lost all his money on the stock market. In his late 20s, he got a loan and opened a store, but he went out of business because of the competitor next door. Now he has become a 30-year-old loser, without any qualifications or achievements. He felt depressed. He had devoted his 20s to hard work, but his only achievement since he was 20 was getting older. It was depressing for him when he couldn't be more pessimistic about his own life. His grandfather passed away. At the funeral, his uncle Sai, they would say he had a good life. Yeah, he had so much fun in his life. The protagonist thought he can barely remember him. He used to see him a lot when he was little, but he only saw him a few times after getting older. Whenever he visited him as a child, his grandfather would give him some candies from the stove. His gentle and kind smile is the first memory that comes to his mind when he thinks of his grandfather. Someone asks, "So, Jiakang, what do you do these days?" Jiakang looked down, unable to answer. His uncle noticed his hesitation and said, "Don't worry about it, son. I know things have been tough for you, especially after what happened with your business." "Oh, I see," said a family friend nearby. "If you're looking for a fresh start, how about taking over your grandfather's store?" Jia Rang looked surprised. "What, me?" His uncle nodded. "Yes. For some reason, your grandfather really loved that place. We wanted to keep it, but I don't think Mother can manage it alone anymore." "Because I have my job," his uncle sighed. "It's out in the countryside, so I know young people might not be thrilled with the idea. But the sales are steady since there aren't any other stores around." Jia Kang paused, remembering the store and the memories he had there. It was a bittersweet feeling, thinking back to his grandfather and the time spent in that old shop. Finally, he said, "Okay, I'll do it." He thought to himself, "I'll start my life again from there." As Jia Rang was about to leave, a beautiful woman approached him. "Hello, Jia Rang. It's been a while since we met at the funeral," she said with a warm smile. It was his Aunt Jin Hee Choi. "Good to see you again, Aunt Jin Hee," Jia Rang replied. He thought to himself, "I'll stay at my uncle's house until I find a place to live." Actually, he added, "It's my grandfather's house. My father grew up here." Jia Kang arrived after a long journey and was welcomed by Jin Hee, who remarked on how tiring the trip must have been. Jia Kang replied that it was enjoyable and mentioned that his uncle's wife, Jin Hee, was more than 10 years younger than his uncle. Jin Hee asked if he had eaten, to which Jia Kang responded that he had already had lunch. Jin Hee then invited Jia Kang inside and offered to show him his room. She led him to a room that had once been his grandfather's study and mentioned that she had cleaned it up for him. Jia Kang expressed his appreciation, saying it looked nice, and Jin Hee was pleased to hear this. She told him that he could unpack his things and that she would let him know when dinner was ready. Jia Kang thanked her. Later, Jia Kang sighed, reflecting on how he had spent his entire life focused on work without ever dating. He thought it was somewhat pathetic that he had ended up back here. Deciding to explore, he went to the store. At the store, he saw an elderly woman stacking boxes. Recognizing her as his grandmother, Jia Kang called out to her. She was delighted to see him and asked what he was doing there. Jia Kang explained that he would be starting work the following day and wanted to check out the store beforehand. He remarked that nothing seemed to have changed, and his grandmother agreed, saying it was just how things were. As Jia Kang looked around, he noticed a flyer that read, "Hole closed." Jia Kang offered to help his grandmother with her tasks, but she told him to go home and rest instead. Jia Kang insisted, saying he didn't have much to do anyway. After some time, Jia Kang asked his grandmother how she had planned to handle everything alone. She replied that his grandfather had managed until the day before he passed away, so she could do it too. She then asked Jia Kang if he thought he could handle the responsibility. Jia Kang said he had to try, as he felt there was nothing left for him in the city. His grandmother agreed, saying she would continue to take care of the store, so it wouldn't be too difficult for him. Jia Kang then asked, somewhat puzzled, what his role would be if she was taking care of the store. His grandmother interrupted and asked if he had greeted the village chief yet. Jia Kang admitted that he hadn't, so she suggested they go say hello later. Just then, someone entered the store. A girl came in and demanded beer, addressing his grandmother as Old Broad and asking her to hand over the drinks. His grandmother responded in frustration, telling the girl to stop drinking so much. The girl retorted, saying she could do whatever she wanted. She then noticed Jia Kang and, surprised, asked if he was a man. His grandmother introduced Jia Kang, saying he was her grandson. Jia Kang introduced himself, saying he would begin working there the next day, and expressed his pleasure in meeting everyone. Women responded with a simple, "Oh, I see." Grandma gave 3 bottles of beer to a woman who thanked her. Grandma introduced the woman as Guillaume Hai Yang, explaining that she worked the night shift at a factory and raised a child alone. Grandma mentioned that Guillaume often came by for beer, expressing sympathy by calling her a poor girl. Guillaume Yang, feeling offended, told Grandma to stop talking and called her an old broad before leaving the store. After Guillaume left, Grandma remarked that Guillaume frequently came to buy 3 bottles of beer. Jia Kang noticed this and asked why Guillaume seemed surprised to see him. Grandma explained that it was because there were no men in the village, which surprised Jia Kang. When Jia Kang asked for clarification, Grandma confirmed that their village was called Da Yum, which Jia Kang already knew. Grandma shared the village's history. A long time ago, the men were forced to go to war, and many of the women fled. This village became a place where the surviving women gathered. With no men around, the women had to work in the fields and build houses to support themselves and their community. After the war, the women in the village could only give birth to girls. Despite attempts to bring in couples from other villages, the outcome remained the same. The village consisted only of girls, which led to it being named Da Yum, symbolizing strong yin energy. It was also known as the no-men village, referring to the absence of men. Jia Kang's grandfather and uncle were the only men who had ever lived there. Jia Kang acknowledged this, saying he finally understood why there were so many female-oriented products around. He jokingly asked if he would be forced into hard labor just because he was a man. Grandma reassured him, saying he needn't worry, as the women were fully capable of handling tough labor themselves. Later that evening, while having dinner, Jia Kang's uncle asked if he had checked the stove that day. Jia Kang confirmed that he had, saying it wasn't as bad as he expected. His uncle then asked if Jia Kang's girlfriend had mentioned anything about visiting. Jia Kang replied that he didn't have a girlfriend. His uncle reacted with surprise, noting that it was good, as there were plenty of girls in the village. Jia Kang laughed to himself, amused by the idea of a village without men. He realized that this was how his uncle Li had been able to marry such a beautiful woman. Jia Kang remarked that his work would start the following day, and he promised to do his best. Someone knocked on the door and asked if Kang was awake. Kang responded, saying that he was awake. It turned out to be his aunt, who asked him how he felt about being there. Kang replied that he wasn't sure, but thought he could get used to it soon. His aunt then asked if he thought he could handle the job. Kang responded that he didn't know for sure, but he would try his best. His aunt questioned his response with a "really?" Kang, feeling confused, asked, "Excuse me?" She replied, saying it was nothing, and wished him good night. Kang wished her good night, addressing her as Aunt Jinhee. As Kang went back to sleep, he wondered what that conversation was about. The next day, at the store, Jia Kang yawned, saying it was hard to get up early again. He noticed his grandmother was up early and commented on it. She greeted him, saying, "Good morning, Jia Kang," and mentioned there was a lot to do that day. Kang asked her what he should do first. His grandmother told him that, starting that day, he would be responsible for the whole. Kang, surprised, asked, "What?" His grandmother took him inside the store and showed him a room, telling him he could stay there. Kang agreed, but wondered why there was a hidden door in the store. Kang then asked what he was supposed to do in that room. His grandmother replied that he would find out soon enough. Jia Kang looks toward a mysterious hole. His grandmother tells him there is a manual written by his grandfather and instructs him to read it. Kang starts reading the manual, and his grandmother places a flyer on the stove that says, "Hole opened." The manual explains that Da Yum village, also known as No Men Village, is filled with yin energy and that a yin ritual must be performed regularly to maintain balance. Due to his old age, Kang's grandmother could not perform the ritual for years, so she wrote this manual for his successor. The ritual, as described in the manual, involves becoming the whole of this stove to control yin energy. The manual states that becoming the whole means using his ding-dong in the whole of the room to inject yang energy into the center of yin energy. This action is further explained as having sacred ritual with a woman in the other room to balance the yin energy. Kang, feeling embarrassed, thinks, "What?" as he blushes. Suddenly, someone enters the other side of the room, drawing Kang's attention. He peeks to see who it is and recognizes the woman who previously came to buy beer. The woman, blushing, says she is here for the whole and greets him with a shy, "Hello."